Welcome to the Job Fair, where we give job seekers and employers the space to tell their own stories and bring our listeners along for the ride. We're your hosts, Doug and Shauna. Let's dive into it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Job Fair, Season 2, Episode 9.
Oh my goodness.
Look at this. I know.
In the flesh. Live and direct. We in the great city of San Francisco, California, y'all. I came out to see my home. I had to do it. I had to do it.
Yeah.
Crazy year.
So y'all get some episodes with us together, which is going to be a blast. We're really excited. Already off to a kick across everything, like globally, my life, your life. How about you? How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm just following the news and drinking my coffee, as they say.
Drinking the coffee, drinking the champagne on this side over here.
No champagne. Dry January was huge this year.
Oh, did you do that? I never do dry January.
But it was a pretty big deal. Yeah, we're excited to be back, y'all. We're right back at you with another episode. Thank you again. Our following on social media, YouTube continues to grow. We're flattered and we're honored, and we want to continue giving y'all what y'all need. So, Shauna, any other housekeeping things here? Shall we go over?
We always have our agree to disagree, but let's intro the topic for today.
Man, it's a real good one. Simply put, the market since January 20th. I don't think any other explanation is needed on that. Just what's been happening since the impacts of Trump administration taking over have been since the inauguration on January 20th. A lot has happened. There's a lot of orders and initiatives from the federal government that are really shaking up the room in this U.S. job market. And we're going to dive all into that.
I can't wait, but you ready for it? In person and agree to disagree? I feel like it can't be as spicy because we're in the same room.
It can be.
You want to kick us off then? As the guest in California?
Absolutely. All right. When unemployed, interviewing gets easier or harder the more you do.
Yeah. Oof. I actually think it gets harder because if you're not getting offers or you finally get your resume seen, you feel a little bit more pressure that it might take another big couple of reach outs to get noticed again. So I actually think it gets harder because you want it more. So with this statement, I disagree. Interviewing does not get easier.
This is such an interesting one to unpack and pick a side on. We can go either way. Obviously, I agree with the statement that it gets easier. The reason for that is that these employers, they all got the same playbook for the most part. What's your biggest strength? Tell me about a time when. It's crazy how these employers tend to not deviate from those core interview questions. It's like being in the gym. The more you do it, the better you get at it. I agree that it gets easier.
Okay, let's switch it up a bit. We're in the new year, right? Things are happening. The Super Bowl will eventually be on Netflix. And I know we've talked a lot about streaming. So what about the Super Bowl on Netflix?
I agree with the statement. I think Netflix is really just absolutely killing it with their sports strategy. It's driving the stock price crazy. I hear that from you a lot.
So today, I don't know if you've checked this today. I don't want to date us, but it has hit over 1,000.
I think the poor folks like myself, who the late adopters, we're going to have to wait for that stock split before we get into that action. But yeah, they're going to get the Super Bowl and they're going to become, in my opinion, the number one destination as far as streaming for live sports.
Yeah, I do think they're on their way. I agree with the statement, too, that it will eventually be on Netflix. They're on their way doing the football shows over the holidays. My only thing is the amount of people that tune in. The amount of people that watch the Super Bowl versus people that watch that. The boxing match, I don't think is even near what viewership will be like for the Super Bowl. And there were some streaming issues for the boxing match.
Yeah, they'll get all that worked out. Cool. All right. Advanced degrees are still key to getting well-paid roles.
So this one's tricky. I'm going to disagree on this one because I think the caveat for me is some roles require advanced degrees. It doesn't necessarily mean that's well paying. Does that make sense? I think you could have well-paying jobs that don't require advanced degrees, because I still think only some jobs require that, and it doesn't even mean that you get paid well.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There are several exceptions to this, if you want to call this a rule. I think that this statement is correct.
Of course.
By and large, you have your exceptions. You have people who can get into IT and get certifications. That's there. But in general, if you have a master's degree or a doctorate or something, like, your resume, you're in a different class of competition in the job market. You got people who have engineering degrees that go on and do media. It commands a certain level of respect. Wow, you did that.
True. I guess that shines a light on the actual hiring process. What I don't know what's going to happen is how AI is going to affect education and affect situations like this. I think that will be a topic maybe for season 3.
Yeah, definitely. One more thing on the advanced degrees, though, is you have these careers that 1,000% require them, like being a lawyer, a doctor, or anything like that. And those career fields are still well paying. Like, that's
I would agree. Yeah. Like, you want to be a doctor or lawyer. I guess I was thinking more outside of the generic of what you think of when you think of advanced degrees. Even think about engineering, very high paying roles. You don't technically need an advanced degree to do it. You don't even need a bachelor's degree.
You don't need it. You don't need college. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook. He's a college dropout. Bill Gates dropout. Nah.
All right. So last one is, an employee's physical location is still a big consideration for fully remote roles.
I strongly agree with this.
We're going to go 0.
Because honestly, they're even at a point now with a lot of remote roles I see where they're like remote, but based in whatever state, whatever region. I don't think that companies are that comfortable with someone living in Mexico working for someone who's in California or New York. Generally, that's not preferable.
So I disagree with this statement. An employee's physical location is a big consideration for labor roles. Caveat that, within the United States, I don't necessarily know if I wouldn't hire somebody who is in Nebraska. I don't think they have to be in New York, LA, San Francisco, so a bigger city or near an office. Personally, because I think you actually reach broader skill sets and maybe higher talent.
That's the theory, but I don't know how true that is.
Because at the end of the day, is the company itself remote? I think if a company is behind fully remote roles, you have to be behind it. Time zones could matter. So I think that's where that does come into play, because it's very difficult if you have a global company to have a full team sync. If you have folks in Asia and Europe, it's really hard to find a time that works for everybody.
If that person is on the opposite time zone and they're showing up, adding value, being great at what they do, I don't think anyone can say anything to that person. They might be a night owl. It can work, but I think that employers are not comfortable with the idea of knowing it's 1 a.m. where you are and 9 a.m. here, and this is normal for us. Like, people don't like that idea.
So then what we're really saying is companies are lying when they say
they're lying, for sure. This is hitting on geographic discrimination. Like, we're getting rid of all that bias in the new administration.
We do think that remote roles are going away less and less anyway. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Back to the show.
Topic at hand. We said we're going to talk about the market, but let's break that down a little bit. So let's talk about the January 20th effect. What is that?
Unless you've been living under a rock, January 20th was the day of Trump's inauguration. The day that Trump was sworn into the office, and immediately after announced a slew of executive orders to kick off an aggressive push to bring the U.S. back to what he calls the golden age. The big ones that you're going to hear the most about in the news were, number one, the creation of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk. Vivek was a part of it, but things didn't work out. He's no longer a part of DOGE, but Elon is still in full control, and they laid out some clear priorities. This agency is going to drive key initiatives and priorities, starting off with DEI programs, reviewing and decreasing the amount of consulting contracts the federal government uses, and taking a closer look at federal building leases, cutting costs there with the real estate resources. And then also agency and program consolidation, assessing, do we need this agency, this program, and removing or consolidating as needed. Obviously, there are metrics attached to this whole push. They're claiming that as of yesterday, they've been saving $1 billion per day in spending cuts with the efforts thus far. Yeah, that's all unsupported with detailed data at this current moment. But yeah, that's the size of it, Shauna.
I don't know about you, but since January 20th, I can't even keep up anymore. Every day it is something new. And I can't keep up. I don't know all the things that are happening. I don't think I've ever noticed how many loopholes there are to get around things. And why don't we just have the whole presidency be executive order? Nothing has to go through. It's crazy. I don't think I ever realized that.
Yeah, the approach that he's taking is, I don't think that he believes, or the Trump administration believes, that they're going to be successful in everything. As we've seen,
throwing at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Throwing in the wall. I'm not even sure of the number of executive orders that were shot out on the 20th that day, but his success rate has got to be under 20%, because they're all getting shut down in Supreme Court. The federal funding freeze rescinded. It was countersued and then rescinded later. I think the whole idea is for it to be a storm where you just know that he's doing a lot, or they're doing a lot.
A lot's happening, let's be real. But let's start with the most aggressive aspect of it, the federal DEI shutdown. Ooh. Now, Doug, I know this is a space that you work in some way.
Why do you think DEI is really important to me?
I thought that's what you did. I didn't mean it that way, but the role that you currently work in supports funding for that.
We do.
Oh, God. Look at, I don't even know my partner that well.
No.
Oh, you're just giving me a hard time. I don't like this in person.
I'm giving you a hard time because we have both dabbled in DEI, if you will.
Okay. I'm going to keep going. So, executive orders, right, issuing that 60-day notice to terminate all federal and environmental justice offices. Elon Musk claims to have already canceled DEI-related contracts that will save, as I said, $1 billion, expanding that trend of large corporations, all the corporations that have sadly cut their programs, Meta, Amazon, Target, already rolling back those initiatives. And then you have some companies that have announced to retain that, Costco, JP, Morgan Chase. What is this? What do you think this all means for job seekers?
I think any of what you do is tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion work. You need to rethink your career strategy. I think those are the types of folks who is going to pertain to the most, is if you work in any space that leverages this funding, or if you work in HR, your whole strategy and your ethos of what you do is linked to DEI, you need to rethink how you're going to go about it.
But you rethink that for the next 4 years, and then
exactly
when the pendulum swings like it always does sometimes, then you're like, okay, now.
Is the pendulum necessarily going to swing in 4 years? No.
It will eventually.
Yeah, maybe.
We will never stay at one. We'll never stay at one.
You never know. These are uncharted waters here, Shauna.
From Doug's mouth, you heard it.
No, but yeah, so if you work in DEI or DEI adjacent, you need to rethink your strategy moving forward. I think that if you don't, though, you need to just be more in tune with the underlying kind of reasoning for this push, at least from the Trump administration. And it's a stronger emphasis on meritocracy. He wants to remove DEI, and I think the executive order states it as wasteful and unfair biases from employment and employers and practices. So right now you need to focus on highlighting any concrete achievements, credentials that you have as a job seeker, and not leading with more value-driven value propositions is what I would say, Shauna.
And I think that also brings a question for job seekers in knowing who you want to work for and you don't want to work for. I also think that's something that comes into play if you're looking for a role.
But with so many of these companies that were pro-DEI and were seen as socially progressive and things like that, rolling back their policies to just save face pretty much. How many companies out there are there that you would quote unquote want to work for if you're a pro DI person? Slim pickings out here. JP Morgan or Costco. I think that's about it.
Didn't Costco just go through they got sued by the
union thing. Yeah. But I'm
that
also,
Costco stock's over $1,000 too, I believe.
It is?
I think so.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. No, I missed that boat. Wow. I'm a big Costco guy.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
They have the great Instagram page with the Costco finds and stuff. Yeah, I'm all over it. But anyway, back to DEI. What do you think, Shauna? I want to bounce this one to you.
Okay.
What do you think this DEI rollback means for employers and, hiring strategy?
Can you elaborate more?
Like, for example, if you were a company who led with the whole, we want to source candidates fairly and from all backgrounds and all the things that DI represents as pertains to your hiring strategy. What do you think that looks like now moving forward for employers who now their company, corporate, at the high level has rolled back DEI?
I think it looks the same, to be honest. I think you're changing the narrative and the way that you storytell it. So I think you're basically saying those are all things we still value. The only difference is we're not out there publicly marketing it, but it's something that we still value. It's still in our core beliefs, but we don't feel that we need to come out and pinpoint it across other things. I think that's just the way that you switch it up. Yep. Now, whether you behind closed doors make changes that don't align with that, I don't know. But I think that's how I feel like they would still sell to job seekers. And it's on a job seeker to know when they're interviewing, look for certain, like actually go through and see, do you see things that align with that? Is it a lie? Is it not? That's where you have to do the work, because a company will probably never come out and say.
Exactly. I think that you're spot on. Folks have to learn how to rebrand their efforts around DEI and what exactly DEI is. Mm-hmm. You have to reframe and mute on some levels any work and investments that you make in that space.
I think it's having a full page that says, here's our culture and what we're dedicated to. Instead, they will still show numbers that say 50% female, 50% male, things like that. I think they'll still show some data points, but I don't think they're going to explicitly say like a whole thing, like we have all these communities, we have all these support channels. I just don't think there's going to be as much as an emphasis on it. I do think what I'm talking about, though, is related more to a corporate side. I think when you take something like Target, who clearly will stop investing possibly in Black-owned businesses, Asian-owned businesses, that you will see more. But I think from a corporation side, it's just going to be less in your face in the culture page or the docs that they send you.
You'll still see the photos on the website with the handful of token minorities, executives there, just to make sure it's still visible, but we're not having quotas. We're not setting out targets. That's all gone. So
I think that's the biggest thing, because larger companies do have some quotas that they need to hit. And even before, to hit some of the goals that they had for them that now they just don't have to hit now. Or maybe they still do. And maybe on a public facing, they're saying they don't, but internally they do. So you just never know. You got to assess that out.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a heavy one.
I know. I feel like we could talk about it so much more, but let's move forward.
All right. Yeah. All right. Next up, that federal spending overhaul. Oh man, this one, this is the spiciest thing that has happened in a long time, in my opinion, as it pertains to employees of any type.
It's insane.
It's really insane. So what we're seeing right now is the U.S. Office of Personnel Management has been tasked by the Trump administration to send out emails to all federal employees, every last one of them, entitled "Fork in the Road." This is they really call
it everything in so impersonal by an email, like layoffs. I'm just going to send out an email. Your job's been eliminated.
Is email the preferred communications medium for layoff communication? The U.S. Office of Personnel Management sent out these emails to all federal employees outlining a plan, or a proposal rather, for deferred resignation options made available effective immediately to all federal employees. What that looks like is, if you accept, you get full pay and benefits through September. I think that worked out to, at the time when it was sent out, about 9 months.
I thought it was 8 months, yeah.
9 months. They expect 5 to 10% of federal employees to accept.
They sent it out to everybody, but not everybody is eligible.
Yeah. Back to the metrics and goals, they expect to create a savings of $100 billion in federal wages.
But I want to know more about that, because how much is it going to cost us in the near future to do that? Layoffs are not cheap either.
No.
So when's that $100 billion coming back to us?
I don't know. Probably 10 years from now. There's so many things that are unclear and uncertain with this proposal that have surfaced. What are the implications for your pension, your retirement?
That's the other thing.
That's a big one. Also, I believe that in March, they're approaching another potential government shutdown. What happens if that were to actually happen? Do you still get paid? There's so many, and it's crazy how rushed and in some ways sloppy the whole rollout has been. They literally called it a fork in the road. I can't get over it.
It's also, is this not what Musk did at Twitter?
It is. And so the other thing that was outlined in the email was the 4 pillars of what's being called the reformed federal workforce. All right. So those 4 pillars are: number 1, the return to office mandate. All federal employees are expected in office 5 days a week. Number 2, performance culture, which is code for they're going to be managing people out, more or less, more rigid and stringent performance reviews and management. Third pillar is streamlined and flexible workforce. Essentially, that looks like eliminating overlapping agencies and employees and duties. And it's really code for stealth layoffs, probably. And then the last one is enhanced standards of conduct. Like, we're just going to really hit refresh on what's expected of you all as federal employees and raise the bar.
When did the federal government become a tech company?
When Elon Musk became co-president. That's when.
This is all stuff we heard in 2023. Tech layoffs.
I mean, look, Elon is a prophet. It's really interesting, the collision of, it's like tech meets the Fed.
What's that going to do to our unemployment rate, Doug? Isn't that supposed to be coming down?
Yeah, but I actually don't think that many, if we're talking about the deferred resignation proposal, I don't think many people are going to bite on it. They're just going to pay you over the course of that 8-month period. You're not getting a lump sum. So that makes it even less attractive, in my opinion.
Can you get another job while you're at it so you're getting paid double?
Oh, I'm sure you can, but that's an assumption. I don't know. It sounds like that wasn't really made 100% clear.
We don't know because we aren't part of it either. Yeah. I also don't know anyone in the space to give any insider information.
Listeners, if you are a federal workforce specialist or expert, we'd love to have you out on the show. Help us break this down a bit more. I can't imagine what it's like to be inside the belly of the beast right now as a federal employee. This is all really fascinating to folks like us on the outside. So what does this all mean, Shauna?
What does this mean for job seekers? I don't know where you go from federal government back into the workforce. It's not even something I can wrap my head around. It's not only applying your skill set, but some roles probably don't even work outside of the federal government.
There's no transferable skill within someone's full-time 20-year career in the private sector. That is insane.
If you work for the CIA, where are you going? What is next for you? Do you know what I mean? What is that? I don't even... If you're an accountant, if you work in finance for the government, yes, that's a little bit, but there are some roles that I don't know as a job.
I think what this means is any of these quasi-government companies, maybe nonprofits, NGOs, I think you're going to see a lot of the people who leave the Fed probably pivot into those kinds of spaces. So you'll see that area heat up, the nonprofit space, the government serving companies. I think that's where those folks go for the most part. This could be an opportunity for a lot of this talent that has been locked up in the federal government all these years. There's got to be some folks who have transferable value.
Oh, sure. Of course,
you know what I mean? And that could be a whole wave. We could see executives at different companies that want that kind of experience, and they know how to navigate the Fed. They may be privy to some of the reformed workforce things happening. I think it could be really
interesting. And I'm also just curious on the 5 to 10% that accepts. I'm curious on that data. Is it older folks who have already hit their pension max and can retire, and then they're like, yeah, you're bumping up my timeline? Or is it younger folks? Because I feel like when you apply for a government role, you're in it for life. You're thinking this is it. You're not really looking to jump every 2 years or 3 years? Is it just the younger folks who might be like, oh man, I got to rethink everything? Or is it more middle, older folks? I don't know.
I think this is really appealing to a Gen Zer who happens to work for the federal government. It's almost like just nip it in the bud, get a little payout, and figure out what you really want to do. Because you know that they're not making it more appealing to work for the federal government. They're trying to decrease the appeal by making it more rigid. I think that if you're young, you're really going to look hard at this offer. And obviously, like you said, if you're on your way out anyway. But if you accepting this resignation impacts your pension, which is not 100% clear, then no, an older person is not going to do it.
Think about the amount of money that we taxpayers have paid to train some of this high level skill set. I mean, that's that time, the cost of what went into just one employee, which is could be a completely different skill set from anything else. And I think that's where I want to know, what's this costing us? Because all I'm hearing is what we're saving, but you're only telling me one side to make this look like a good thing.
When the big tech layoffs started happening on certain earnings calls, I think Meta, Amazon, they would outline the cost of executing these layoffs. So we've seen in big tech, when they were doing their layoffs, they would be very transparent around the cost of executing layoffs and what the projected cost savings look like moving forward. So I think that, to answer your question, how much is it going to cost? Are they really going to save? How can they back up this $100 billion projected savings? I think we really have to refer to the modeling that has been done in big tech, which is where Elon is getting this from anyway. $100 billion just sounds really
shiny.
That's it. Shiny.
To be determined conversation, which I'm sure we're going to revisit.
Then we also got to talk about implications for companies and hiring. I think the biggest impact from this is going to be, how are companies who are not the federal government going to react to this? And I personally think that there's going to be a lot of adoption of those same pillars.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's going to probably accelerate the rate of adoption. Like, there's going to be a lot of copycat going on. I do think, though, that you'll see some companies almost stand up and say, you know what, I see you guys doing that, federal government, but we're not that. For example,
depends if they need funding.
You said what?
Depends if they need governmental funding. If there's regulations they need, if there's a quid pro quo, if there's a back scratch there.
I think that the least riskiest one for a private sector company to say we're not going for that is the RTO thing. Because I think...
Well, that's also a cost to them. We have to have offices. We have to have places. They may not have the infrastructure to do. So I could see that.
I don't think companies are going to get dinged for keeping it lean and not having an office.
I would agree.
Yeah. But the other ones, like the performance management and just overall being more shrewd about consolidation. And I think that all are things that, no matter how you feel about how this is all being executed by the Trump administration.
I was going to say, as a business owner, don't you want high performance?
Exactly.
Does that mean the federal government before was not stellar high performance? Are we saying that our federal government was not already?
That's what Trump is saying. Yeah, more or less.
Scary.
And is he wrong? Depends on who you ask. I
don't know. Yeah.
Are we both scurrying around that one? We're not going to tackle that one.
Mostly because we're close on time, Doug. We got to wrap this.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. The full effects on the private non-federal market are still TBD, to be honest. And you guys know that we're going to continue this conversation. It's been less than a full month, and we got to let things unfold. But this is just our humble prediction. We expected the influence of what has happened since January 20th will be really widespread. We're expecting a lot of influence to jobs behavior in the market, and then also companies and hiring. Many people are at least taking this time to rethink efficiency, value, and management look like.
I would agree.
Some soul searching happening.
And I think for better or for worse, there will at least be some silver linings still. I think times like these, when real-time perspectives and stories matter most, because that will all continue to evolve. And so drop us a line, let us know what you're hearing, social media or Glad to be on the show. We'd love to have you here, share some thoughts and opinions.
Look, we're putting out that bat signal. This is a time when we need to hear from a wide array of perspectives, whether you're in the market searching, whether you, even if you just struck gold and you just landed a role, we want to hear from you because we want to hear what it was like for you to get there and achieve that milestone. Hiring managers, we want to know what you're hearing from the inside. Don't do anything to jeopardize your job, but come on the show, give us some perspective. What is the strategy looking like? We are a community here at the job fair, and you help us keep this engine going. All right. Episode 10. Stay tuned. It's coming.
My goodness.
Hard and fast, likely right after this. We are going to wrap the season up with episode 10 next. And Shauna.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That's going to be the end of season 2. Season 3 will be in the mix. We'll take a little bit of time off.
Close it out with a bang. Yeah, we're going to have to go on vacation. Didn't you go to Disneyland Tokyo last year?
20. Yeah, last year was London, but yeah.
If you like that, I think that's where we should go for our mid-season break or our post-season break.
There we go.
You bring your family, I'll bring mine.
I don't know. Our relationships with other countries right now isn't as strong. Yeah,
that's a whole another conversation.
Oh, goodness. All right, well, episode 10, be on the lookout for it. Dropping soon.
That's a wrap.
That's it.
Cut.
That's it. Bye, everyone.
Later.